Okay, so as the title suggests, is a discussion around how do we think about directing innovation towards social justice or just outcomes, as it were. And I'll start with a few introductory remarks. I'll present you the argument of this paper, and then I'll try to unpack the argument in three parts. One, the first part is more about the classics around Keynesian politics, Schumpeterian politics for those who work in the area of innovation. The other is a counter argument. The other part is about the counter argument that comes from a rather neoliberal theories, mainly deriving their arguments from Friedrich Hayek. And the third part is the argument I'll try to put forward on directing innovation towards social justice. So if you look at contemporary innovation theory, there seem to be two theoretical camps. One is a new Schumpeterian Keynesian camp that includes former colleagues like Mariana Mazzucato, Carlota Perez, and people who have written a lot on the idea of the state, like Fred Bloch. And basically, they defend a combination of Schumpeterian Keynesian politics of innovation as a solution to the problem of directionality. So as a solution to the problem of where should innovation be directed to. And they agree that such politics is crucial for transformative change, talking about missions, accomplishing missions. And so the hope here is that the Schumpeterian motor of innovation, which is basically profit, would keep, on the one hand, entrepreneurs incentivized to invest, and on the other hand, the Keynesian state would invest very much in infrastructure, distributing risks and rewards of innovation. The counter argument comes from theories, the likes of Worsthal and Mingardi and others, who basically insist that top-down state interventions in the free market aiming at directionality very much suffer from epistemological and moral problems. So they suggest that politics ought to abandon the idea of directionality of innovation towards social justice altogether, and instead, politics of innovation ought to be restricted to promoting a spontaneous institutional environment within which innovation and entrepreneurship could take place. So the argument of this paper is that despite differences, combined Schumpeterian, Keynesian, but also Hayekian theoretical camps tend to rely on very similar liberal notions of morality and politics, which tend to justify distributive currencies of justice. Those who come from political theory and philosophy, I'm sure they know this term, first introduced by Jerry Cohen. So they overlook questions of relational equality in the process of generation and diffusion of new technologies. And therefore, they fail to go far enough to eliminate unjust relations of exploitation, domination, marginalization taking place, production and diffusion of novel technologies, right? If you think of arbitrary exercise of power, unjustified denial of opportunities in this process of producing new technological goods and services. So although such elimination would also presuppose a certain level of equal distribution of risks and rewards of innovation, this level would not be absolute, and therefore it would allow incentives for innovative entrepreneurship to be maintained. So the argument direction of innovation towards social justice is that moral principles and related politics which don't reproduce unequal social relations and instead equalize them through appropriate and sufficient level of distribution of risks and rewards should actually prevail. So there is some kind of dimension of I can call it sufficientarian argument here in this paper. Now, let me just come to the first part. capitalism and economic growth. His focus was mainly on the individual entrepreneur who sees the market opportunities and introduces new combinations to maximize profit. His politics was very much about enabling the profit motor of innovation by sustaining a liberal institutional framework of private ownership and credit creation. Credit creation was a very important issue for Schumpeter. So for him, the direction of capitalism in general and of innovation in particular was very much unpredictable. Despite the fact that he made predictions in his Capitalism, Socialism and Democracy, Schumpeter says that what matters are the facts and the arguments around the predictions, not the predictions themselves. Schumpeter understood both uncertainty and creative destruction as inevitabilities of capitalism, which cannot be politically controlled to deliver socially desirable outcomes. And this was a substantial difference with Keynes, because in his end of laissez-faire, I think it was in 1926, Keynes argues for a political control of capitalism. And the argument here is very much economic as well as moral. The role of government is to mitigate egoism. Individuals in capitalism are very much focused on money making and take economic decisions on the basis of animal spirits. So basically, the argument he puts forward is that the state should do something else, should do something beyond that, something that individuals don't do. So contemporary theories of innovation, the like of former colleagues, as I said, like Mariana Mazzucato and Fred Bloch, try to reconstruct the Schumpeterian and the Keynesian argument. Okay, neither Schumpeter nor Keynes wrote explicitly on the direction of innovation, but these theories combine their politics to address the issue of transformative change towards socially just and desirable outcomes. So for them, the role of the state is not just to facilitate economic development or to correct market failures, but to guide the direction of innovation towards addressing unjust social and environmental challenges. So the state can play this role by investing in areas that the private sector would not invest, even if it had resources. So areas of interest to social justice include the environment, include health, and all of them require some kind of R&D spending, some kind of intervention. So what idea of justice is underpinning this Schumpeterian Keynesian politics? For contemporary theories, whatever is created in terms of novel technologies involves investment from the entrepreneurial state. Therefore, the state is very much justified to direct these technologies towards addressing societal challenges for the benefit of taxpayers. So mission-oriented innovation embodies this liberal idea of distributive justice as reciprocity, founded upon the principle of proportionality of contribution. So the idea of justice encourages some kind of justice there attached to the proportionality of some hybrid of investment and risk. The more entrepreneurial the state becomes, the more it is justified to claim rewards from successful innovations for taxpayers. Such rewards can be regarded as the main currency of justice of the combined Schumpeterian and Keynesian perspective. What is the weakness of that perspective? I think the main weakness is that it leaves out those who have nothing to contribute to the innovation process. So think of disabled people or people who don't pay taxes or individuals who decide to abstain from processes of innovation and social cooperation. So the question is, are such people owed anything by those who can actually contribute to innovation process, or they can pay taxes? And there is no obvious answer here. The entrepreneurial state direction of innovation might, in fact, end up not taking everyone's situation and interest into account in determining what is to count as a just outcome. Only those who contribute to innovation process through their entrepreneurial activity or through their taxes will eventually receive rewards according to that argument. And yet, even if everyone received equal rewards from innovation, this would not automatically guarantee everyone would be in equal relations with each other in the process of generation and diffusion of novel technologies. There would still be relational injustices, such as domination by people who only, for example, recognize certain types of scientific knowledge and refuse to decolonize their epistemologies and methodologies, or others who support hierarchies due to status or oppressors due to gender, different relational inequalities which are out of this argument. Now, the Hayekian critique of that argument is this. I mean, Schumpeterian and Keynesian politics of innovation has been very much challenged by thinkers who, as I said, reconstruct the Hayekian epistemological and moral arguments. And Hayek, again, himself didn't explicitly write anything on innovation, yet he formulated this epistemologically founded critique of central economic planning. If you look back to his collectivist and economic planning written in 1935 or The Road to Serfdom in 1944, he very much argues that central planning is inefficient and ignores market competition as a discovery procedure. So for him, the market is a discovery procedure that actually leads to new developments, leads to innovation involving individual entrepreneurs who are free actors. And here, the moral argument comes in, and it's an argument about freedom. So for Hayek, innovation cannot be possibly planned or directed centrally by the state. Policymakers who cannot understand the complexity of innovation process can in fact end up coercing entrepreneurs, and that's a moral issue for him. Hayekian theories of innovation, like the likes of Jason Pott, they tend to question the Schumpeterian Keynesian politics of the entrepreneurial state, and they try to warn us that what may sound good on paper in terms of collective missions and directionality are often, not always, but often at odds with the received wisdom of individual action and coordination in open democratic societies. They also reconstruct arguments from the likes of Karl Popper, those who remember his Open Societies and Its Enemies book. So for them, such coordination ought to be within the spontaneous order of the free market competition, and they accuse the thinkers of ignoring the limits of human knowledge and the importance of spontaneity for coordinating the market institutions in open democratic societies. They very much dismiss the argument for the entrepreneurial state as a partisan argument. What idea of justice is underpinning this Hayekian politics and its reconstructions? Well, Hayekian theories of innovation aim to leave governments out of the process of directing innovation towards just outcomes. They insist that only free competition can select stronger technologies through trial and error, and this process is considered to be neutral and impartial. So neutrality and impartiality are key pillars of the neoliberal idea of justice and innovation underpinning Hayekian politics. Hayek himself called this idea of justice as a commutative justice that takes no account of personal circumstances. Whatever the market delivers is just, in other words. So only the spontaneous market order can deliver just outcomes in terms of distributing innovation rewards and risks. The weakness of this argument, well, it excludes those who are unable to participate in the competitive market process. So from this, it follows that the poor could never get the chance to value certain cutting edge and expensive innovations because they could never get the chance to buy them and make use of them. But even if they could get the chance to buy such expensive innovations, they could not necessarily find themselves in relations of equality with the rich due to issues of exploitation, domination, hierarchy, and oppression. So if you imagine a person A and a person B who receive the same reward, could still actually be in unequal relations. So this equality cannot eliminate the possibility for for this kind of unequal relation. So the idea of commutative justice in innovation in the end tends to suffer from the same theoretical ills that the idea of justice, innovation, and reciprocity tends to suffer. So overwhelmingly focusing on resources, ignoring inequality of relations in the process of innovation. They're not the same ideas, but they both ignore relational aspects of justice in innovation. And that's why I think it's important to put forward a more relational approach directing innovation towards social justice. And the main claim here is that justice innovation ought to be relational, not only distributive. So in the first instance, we should judge relations, not distributions. A relations theory of justice and innovation presupposes a level of equal distribution of risks and reward that is sufficient, not absolute, as I said at the beginning, and therefore allows for some kind of marginal profit incentives of entrepreneurship to be maintained. So although such incentives are not the only ones in play, when it comes to major innovations based on scientific breakthroughs, the theory considers them to be important within market societies. So the theory holds that each member of society ought to have adequate capabilities to stand in equal relations to other members of society. So this particular argument draws on proponents of social egalitarianism, such as Anderson and Sepler, who have criticized the distributive notion of egalitarianism as primary concern to social justice. And this kind of theorizing is very much non-ideal theorizing. So normative theorizing about relational justice in innovation cannot be founded upon philosophical constructions or theoretical devices which are abstracted from historical facts. Instead, it can be founded upon empirically generated assumptions which succeed to pass what we can call a feasibility test. So a test conducted to provide evidence of whether a theory is feasible in a real world. So the aim here should be to mitigate current relational injustices through public policy or public action instead of moving us from the current unjust state of innovation to a perfectly just one. So there is some kind of pragmatism here. Non-ideal public policy or public action solutions might be actually implemented or tried on the ground in order to deal with relational injustices. And this constant testing of public policy and practice solutions to problems of social justice constitutes the main methodology of a non-ideal and relational approach. So instead of using ideals as standards of social and political assessment of relational injustices, innovation, this theory uses ideals as public policy or public action reality tests, in other words. What does the relational justice, how does the relational justice innovation works? Well, for innovation to embrace relations of equality, it must prevent people from entering superior-inferior relations in the process of knowledge generation, exploitation, and technological change. However, such relations of equality, as I said, are not absolute. If there are justified asymmetries of knowledge, inequalities of resources and capabilities, then relations of equality, innovation, and development can be thought as relative. So the question really is, what is the threshold above which such distributive inequalities become morally unjustified and unacceptable for an innovative society of equals? And the answer, perhaps, is that it's a threshold that does not cause unequal relations of domination and oppression in social cooperation. So to paraphrase Rawls, infamous difference principle, distributive inequalities are just if and only if they are part of an arrangement that maintains relations of equality between all members of society. And really in almost all significant cases of innovation, we have reasons to limit distributive inequality simply because we have reasons to ensure relational inequality between innovators, regulators, and different publics. So just a few words about the politics behind that proposal. In previous works, I have argued that state politics is not necessarily always the best way to achieve just directionality in innovation. This is not only because of capacity and legitimacy issues of states, but also because of what a recent report has pointed out, that liberal political systems very much bend towards the preferences of elites. So powerful elites' interests can often push aside alternatives to innovation. So instead of state politics, I have suggested in a number of previous papers that public action and campaigning for just innovation can actually push for the rectification of relational injustices, ensuring some kind of directionality of various technologies that is morally acceptable. And so the politics of public action is predominantly bottom-up, perhaps more democratic than state politics involving equity, recognition, and participation. This is a parallel debate, I would say. But the common denominator of these groups, which promote this kind of politics, is their counter-hegemonic character. They are political challenging domination by powerful market structures and companies putting forwards alternative directions of innovation towards freedom and sustainability. And such approaches, I think, also embrace pluralism of innovation and a direction towards what Olin Wright theorized as perhaps real utopias, namely bottom-up configurations of innovation, which are facilitated by politics of collective agency to deliver justice. So just to conclude, so in this piece of work, which, as I said, and as you have found out, is very much theoretical, I tried to evaluate two overarching approaches to innovation directionality to justice. So the first was the Schumpeterian and Keynesian approach that puts forward this idea of justice in innovation as reciprocity, namely people deserve rewards from successful innovations according to the proportion of their contribution to innovation. The other approach, the competitive approach, was a Hayekian approach that puts forward this idea of commutative justice in innovation, namely people deserve to receive rewards from innovations according to the market value of their innovative activities. And so I have argued that both approaches are very much liberal and distributive, failing to appreciate the primacy of justice or the importance of relational justice in this innovation process. So for this reason, I try to offer an alternative argument of relational justice in innovation that presupposes a sufficient level of equality of resources and politics of public action. I insisted that equality of resources cannot be absolute, but relative to its impact on equality of relations in the innovation process. And I think this way it leaves some space for inequality of innovation so long as it does not cause unequal relations of domination and oppression in the generation and diffusion of new technologies.